There were some colossal conference dual meets this weekend, including Mizzou taking on Oklahoma State and taking them out in a crazy, down-to-the-wire dual meet. I'll give you a full recap of exactly what happened there, as well as what happened with Penn State claiming the Big Ten regular season title. It was awesome. I was there. It was a total blast. And Cornell took out Princeton to claim the Ivy League. What else did you miss? Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, your source for college wrestling news and discussion. And on this week's wrestling headlines, we're going to start out at the top with some freestyle mixed with some D1 wrestling news. And this is the bout at the ballpark. Unfortunately, Team Iran has pulled out of this event. Initially, this was supposed to be Oklahoma State and Iowa wrestling alongside Team Iran and Team USA. Team Iran has pulled out, and according to the Iran Wrestling Federation, their team was denied 6 visas and are not able to travel here to compete in the event that's happening live on Flow Wrestling in Texas. This is likely due in part to their president saying the words "Death to America," quote, and you know, that's likely why some of these visas got denied. It's a shame because I would have loved to see these wrestlers compete in this event. We were supposedly maybe getting Gable Steveson wrestling against Iran's world champion from this past year. Not going to get that anymore, but there is a glimmer of hope because we're still going to get some really great matches from Thomas Gilman, Jordan Burroughs, Jason Nolf, Kyle Snyder, Nick Wazowski, and more. Men's freestyle, women's freestyle, and Greco-Roman in this event, as well as Oklahoma State and Iowa. They are still wrestling, and you can sign up down in the description below at the Flow Wrestling link to watch it live. That's on Saturday, and it's still going to be a blast of an event. And speaking of Oklahoma State, they wrestled Mizzou over the weekend, but before we get to that, they actually won their 500th dual meet in Gallagher-Iba Arena, which is just historic. It's incredible. It's awesome. With their win over South Dakota State, they claimed their 500th win in the arena. Not many programs can say that. I mean, Oklahoma State is such a historic program. But then they traveled to Mizzou to wrestle the Tigers. And how did that happen? Mizzou claimed a big stake of the Big 12 title. It's not totally claimed yet because they did lose to South Dakota State in the past, and they still have Iowa State coming up. But they beat Oklahoma State 21-20. And I think what's even more impressive about this is that Mizzou had no seniors in the lineup. I was reading about this. They had 8 freshmen or sophomores. Incredible. So they had a couple guys out. Oklahoma State, of course, had A.J. Ferrari out, and I'll get to that, whether that's actually played an impact in this, but here's exactly what happened. Things were really going Oklahoma State's way at the beginning of this dual meet. It started out at 141 with Carter Young taking out Connor Brown in a decision. Travis Whitlake even had a close loss to Keegan O'Toole, 3-2, but a close decision loss, which probably should have been potentially a major or more from Keegan O'Toole, who's just wrestling his butt off this season. And there was no Peyton Mako from Mizzou at 74, but backup Sean Harmon still beat the number 10 ranked Dustin Plott 5-4. This really turned the tides in favor of Oklahoma State. Now, Dakota Gear at this point earned a win for Oklahoma State at 184, and the score is 15-6 heading into 197 pounds. So at this point, they were looking really good. However, Mizzou fired back with some wins from the Eloms, as well as we moved around this corner, they actually had a great pin from Noah Certain, which put them right back on top with a crazy comeback up to this point, leading into 133 pounds. Certain just fired up the crowd. He was psyched. Back-to-back pins at heavyweight and then 125. And then came up Dayton Fix. And Dayton was going to have to do something big to win the dual meet for Oklahoma State. He was going to have to pin. Now, he didn't end up getting that. He was pushing the pace crazy hard. And he was just up, almost about to win by a tech fall. And Mizzou just needed basically Trey Crawford to not get pinned, right? And the crowd at one point was yelling stalling for Crawford because the match was so close that a stall call would have given Fix a point and ended the match. Their own fans were yelling stalling. I don't know if I've ever seen that, but it didn't end up getting ended on a stall call. Ended with Dayton Fix's takedown, and they ended up losing Oklahoma State, lost to Mizzou 21-20. Now, the question is, what if A.J. Ferrari is in? Wouldn't this have changed the duel around? And right, you could say that for the Penn State and Iowa duel. Well, if Spencer Lee was in, Iowa would have won. If A.J. Ferrari was in, Oklahoma State would have won. Okay, but also Peyton Mako wasn't in for Mizzou. Alan Hart wasn't in for Mizzou. So we just have to look at these are the lineups that were sent out. This is who can wrestle, and that's what's happening. So, yeah, sure, there were some what-ifs, but Mizzou ended up winning this match in the Big 12. And speaking of some other awesome, colossal conference dual meets, Cornell and Princeton. Wow. So Cornell claimed the Ivy League championship. They have won 18 of the last 19, giving the trophy over to Princeton last year whenever they I believe whenever they could not compete. But anyway, they beat Princeton over the weekend 21-12, as well as Penn 20-12 and Drexel 21-12. What a weekend for Cornell. Now, Pat Glory, this was the marquee dual meet, or the marquee match that you may have missed, was Vito Arujau losing to Pat Glory. Now, Glory and Arujau went back and forth throughout this. Glory ended up getting a couple takedowns, Vito a couple reversals. It was just a high-paced, high-scoring match that happened on ESPN+, if you want to check out the full dual meet. And this was 33 wins in a row for Pat Glory, who beat Vito 11-9. with another win in his career over Vito. The other thing that happened in this dual meet was Yianni just completely continuing his dominance. Yianni is one of the most just impressive, dominant wrestlers in college, and so far he's improved his streak to 65 wins in a row. Recently this season, tacked a fall and a major just this weekend, and he's just claiming so many bonus point victories. 13 bonus point victories this season. Now, is he a Hodge contender? I mean, of course he's a Hodge contender. But, I see people on Twitter and saying stuff like, are you kidding? Every single time, Yianni or David Carr gets a big pin, it's like, are you kidding me? There's no way. Because of Gable is the front runner, right? And Gable is dominating, unlike anybody we've seen. But you still got to put them in the picture. And I don't know who's going to come out on top. That's why there are a lot of criteria to put out, for whoever wins the Hodge Trophy. So do you think Gable's a lock, or do you think Yianni or somebody else can actually win the Hodge? Now, over the weekend also, Penn State claimed the Big Ten title. They defeated Ohio State on Friday night, and then they defeated Nebraska. They improved to 16-0 on the season while clinching this title. I was in attendance, and wow, was the atmosphere electric at both dual meets, at the Bryce Jordan Center on Friday night, and then in Rec Hall on Sunday. They beat Ohio State 32-7 in Nebraska 21-13. And there were a couple things in both of these matches that kind of had questions in my head, and I wondered about things. So Srirachi did not wrestle this weekend. I guess he may have suffered a bit of a minor injury. Hopefully, I guess he's healing up and going to be back. So Mason Manville actually filled in. He did end up losing twice, but still filled in for Srirachi. RBY, oh my goodness, is looking absolutely lethal. Did you see his assassin pin on Friday night? The Bryce Jordan Center went absolutely bonkers over it, and that was just, he's just looking so darn dominant and impressive at the weight. I can't wait for him to wrestle Dayton Fix and the rest of the competition in the field come postseason time. And then the other thing that happened also was Bo Bartlett. He put up a tough battle on Friday night against Sammy Sasso, and then had this crazy sequence against Ridge Lovett on Sunday, and Lovett ended up coming on top. But wow, this was probably the match, or at least the takedown of the weekend. Incredible. And then one other thing in the lineup, and I think this is where Penn State is still shifting things in the lineup, right? Which is just crazy. The lineup at the beginning of the season is way different than the lineup that it is now. Michael Beard came out at 197, which I thought was odd. He came out for Max Dean, and maybe because Max Dean's just been having some close matches is why Coach Sanderson decided to throw him out and put Michael Beard out. Maybe this 197 isn't staked down. And I think that's how all the weights are. They're not staked down. Anybody can come in. I also think Berge, who didn't wrestle this weekend, I have a very sneaky suspicion, I've said this before, that he's heading down to 157 pounds, and Creighton Edsel is going to fill in at 65, who's been wrestling a pretty good season. So it's not set yet. So we'll see what happens by the time Big Ten's coming around. And there's another thing that happened over the weekend in this duel was Carson Karchla was not there against Ohio State. Would have loved to see that match at 165. Just would have loved to see him wrestle. But there are some other big happenings at 165, including Alex Marinelli, who beat Dean Hamidi 8-5. Now, it was a close score, but honestly, I felt like Marinelli controlled the match for the most part. He had 2 takedowns, split reversals in the third period. Hamidi at this point was 17-0, and I was just excited to see like how close was he to this top competition. Well, we saw he's still a top wrestler, but Marinelli did have control over him. He'll have a shot at him again. Evan Wick won by major over the weekend as well, a top dog at 165, and Shane Griffith defeated Anthony Valencia 7-6 in a fun, high-paced dual meet. So 165 is just an absolutely bonkers, crazy weight where I still think anything can happen. And as we get closer and closer to the postseason, you just wonder what's going to happen at some of these weights at 165, at 174, and with these conference storylines, like what's going to happen? Well, make sure you stay tuned to Fanco Wrestling as I give you exactly my predictions and thoughts on what happens, as well as some recaps. So if you're not already, hit that subscribe button to Fanco Wrestling. Let me know what you thought about this weekend in wrestling news.